everyone. Welcome again to the BATTASS Podcast, the Batman the Animated Series Show podcast. I'm Clay McCormack, and with me is...
Your very willing co-host, Sean Murphy.
Well, we're both...
That sounded weird.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
know.
I feel like you're kind of
show,
the...
Fortunately.
I feel like you're the main character, and I'm kind of like your Robin.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's very possible. But I mean, everybody wants to be the sidekick, right? That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was why they came up with Robin.
Yeah, that's why Robin is the most highest selling book in the world and not Batman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. I was wondering when they came up with Robin and they're like, "Oh, let's get the kiddies involved in this." Like the kiddies really want to, with the 1950s voice. I imagine if they thought like, well, wait a minute, what does that say about Batman getting children involved? Like, do we really want to go down that road? And here we are, like, 80 years later. People are questioning his methods and whether he's a child abuser.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was that much. I think it was just like, what's going to get the more kids to identify with this character? Maybe a kid. That kind of thing.
It's just exactly.
And make sure he doesn't wear pants.
Oh, Pearl Harbor was just bombed.
It was actually the same telegraph. That's why it was so delayed and they didn't actually,
Yeah, but first is first. Robin is going to be Batman's sidekick, and we just got bombed.
Yeah. Today we'll be doing the first two-parter in this show, which is Two-Face Part 1 and 2.
Yes.
And the first, we're going to do them both at the same time, so we're just going to kind of talk about them as one big piece. The first one, the story is by Alan Burnett, teleplay by Randy Rogel, directed by Kevin Altieri. Second one, written by Randy Rogel, directed by Kevin Altieri. And in those episodes... Mobster Rupert Thorne attempts to use Harvey Dent's secret. Monster Rupert Thorne would be a very different episode.
Yeah, man, I'd watch that one.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't eventually do that because he is kind of a boring character. Yeah. Mobster Rupert Thorne attempts to use Harvey Dent's secret split personality to blackmail him. But when Dent meets with Thorne at a chemical plant, Big Bad Harv takes over, and the resulting confrontation leads to an explosion that horribly scars half of Dent's face. Harvey Dent, now calling himself Two-Face, resurfaces and starts robbing Rupert Thorne's illegal businesses, preparing for a final confrontation with the crime boss, and Batman must stop his former friend before he and Thorne kill each other. I can't remember if it was in person or maybe on another episode of the show, but at some point you asked me who my favorite Batman villain was.
Yeah, I think that was me.
Yeah, and I had I couldn't really, I was kind of struggling to come up with an answer, and this episode reminded me that Two-Face is my favorite character. He was when I was 12, or whenever, I remember Two-Face is mine as well. Yeah. So I'm with you. Go ahead. I think previously when I was younger, I think it was fairly just a visual or an aesthetic kind of thing, because he's got a really cool look to him. Yeah. The coin thing is cool. He's got a good gimmick. But the more I think about him, he's really the most believably insane of the Batman villains, because his entire thing is based on like a very specific kind of mental issue, basically. He just also happens to be a super criminal. Yeah,
even as a kid, that went a long way with me about why I liked him. Yeah, it's funny, when I was so used to this version that when Tommy Lee Jones played him, I was startled, like, wait a minute, he's like half punk, half business? That's stupid.
Yeah.
And of course, that's actually how it is in the comic.
Yeah, but, one of the great things about him is that I guess they change up character looks so frequently, but I feel like Two-Face really actually lends himself to that quite well. Because you can have so many contrasting looks and everything that you can throw together, whereas the Joker is always going to kind of look like the Joker, unless they cut his face off or something.
Not when Joaquin Phoenix plays him.
That's true. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So one thing you said at the beginning was made me think this is you said that you don't like Thorne, and my first reaction was, oh, I love Thorne, and I thought, no, wait, I'm thinking of Roland Daggett.
Oh, yeah.
then I thought, why are there two separate characters? You could have combined, like, business tycoon criminal guy into one, basically. And then I started thinking, well, is Rupert Thorne written less well than Daggett, or is it the voice actor who's less talented at pulling off the lines?
I don't know. I actually like the voice actor for Thorne. I forget exactly who it is. I mean, I could look it up, I suppose.
Right.
But it's I've never had a problem with the performance. I just, kind of when I was a kid, as I think I've mentioned before, all of the off-brand villains, like the either the new villains or the ones that just weren't super villains, usually were in the episodes that I liked the least. So only later, since we've been doing this, have they kind of come back up. Like I didn't like was it The Forgotten? I think
right,
the Godfather episode.
Right.
Yeah, I like that one a lot more this time around.
Right.
But yeah, he's just sort of like a straight ahead mob type, and but as far as this episode goes, I actually think he's pretty useful because. Dent is just a by-the-numbers DA, and putting him up against anybody who isn't just like a by-the-numbers criminal, I think would feel a little bit disingenuous. So it's nice that they're kind of on the same playing level.
Yeah, I mean, because Dent has to go and meet him because he's threatened they're going to release information about his mental health issues.
Yeah.
So for him to like meet with this guy, he has to be somewhat. He can't just. I mean, is Thorne a straight up criminal, or does he have legitimate business tendencies as well?
I think Thorne is pretty much straight up criminal.
Oh, okay. Then never mind what I was saying.
Well, it's funny. I was watching this thinking, man, Dent should have. If Dent had been running for office now, it wouldn't. Nobody would give a shit about his.
I thought the same
capacity.
thing.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, who cares? I mean, if anything, you could flip this and say, oh, this is fake news, and this is just the Republicans or Democrats trying to smear me, and we all have mental health issues. We're all working on something. Like, how dare you attack? Like, you would absolutely spin this.
Yeah. You could absolutely make this look sympathetic.
Right, but let's assume this show is thinking like the 1930s, 1940s,
right,
where no one really admits that they see a psychologist or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I could see a route to that character being motivated or being afraid that this would really hurt him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, politics have been blown up so differently in the last year that it's like, really, Dent, you're afraid of that? Come on.
Yeah. Well,
it's not much of a motivator anymore.
Maybe this is jumping too far ahead, but I mean, this is an origin episode, so we may as well get into the origin of Two-Face a little bit. Just for a little backstory. Two-Face, his first appearance was in Detective Comics 66. His name was actually Harvey Kent, but they changed it because it was too similar to Superman. He only made 3 appearances in the 40s and appeared twice in the 50s, and then they shelved him because they thought he was too scary. And it wasn't until the 70s that they brought him back. And his origin has always more or less been the same thing, which is he's a young upstart, very successful district attorney who the mob wants to knock down a peg, and traditionally that happens when he gets acid thrown on his face in the middle of a courtroom, which is kind of preposterous, but it does the job. Most preposterously depicted in Batman Forever, where the guy on the witness stand just like reaches into his jacket and pulls out like a big thing of acid that he throws at him, and then
which
Batman,
one tends to carry into courtrooms?
Exactly, and then Batman jumps out of the audience of the court. So it's like he was just hanging out, like watching
Batman.
Yes, he's as Batman. So
like
he was
third
just
row Batman.
Yeah, wow. hanging out in the audience, and then it's like, oh, I guess I should probably intervene here.
Yeah,
which really tells you that mobster has some balls on him to do that right in front of Batman.
Yeah, it's quite a reach, the power he's got. It's funny, if you had just digitally added some broken glass as Batman dove, you'd be like, oh, he just came through a window and boom, problem solved.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just imagining him like checking in and going through the metal detector, getting a cup of coffee, waiting in line to take a piss, sitting down, waiting patiently, and like, wait a minute, that guy has acid.
Putting on his reading glasses so he can read the paper before the trial starts.
I know.
Talking to the woman next to him.
Oh man, when are they gonna start this thing, huh? I'm getting tired.
Did you take the train here? Did you take the train here too?
I was out late last night. I suppose you already knew that.
But the most recent incarnations, I don't know about the comic, but at least this one and in The Dark Knight, he gets scarred by explosions, and the explosion in this is incredibly violent. It's really intense. There, he's running across this catwalk, and then these wires fall into these chemicals and just blow the shit out of him.
Right. It's funny. Every version of Two-Face I've seen has a very clear line. Like half his body or face is very clearly. It's never like slightly asymmetrical. It's not like there's a little bit of burn on one side. You know what I mean? It's always perfectly symmetrical. And I always wondered if anyone had ever done one where it's more mishmashed,
Well, I think isn't the one in Dark Knight a little bit more jagged in the definition? It's still pretty straight down the middle of the face, but I think there is a little bit of bleed. But so also from Batman
I'll check.
Forever.
Keep talking.
My favorite they felt like they had to motivate or explain why only half of his face got scarred. So when the guy throws acid, they cut to Tommy Lee Jones holding up a piece of paper in front of his face. So only half of his face gets... It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, the paper just happened to be... Okay, so I'm looking at Aaron Eckhart now. It is pretty 50-50.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay.
But there are some other ones from video games that, like, his hair is fine, but the face down, it's more... it's not such a clean line. Yeah,
and when I draw him, I like to try and to mess with that a little bit to make it a little bit less clean cut. But the thing that's kind of nice about it, which comes into play, well, later in the episode, but also in general with the character, is there's something satisfying about that straight down the middle cut, whether it's the face or the suit or the places that he's hanging out or anything like that. That line is kind of it's really indicative of him as a character,
right? Because you can do the shot where you're looking at half his face and he's like, oh, this is a normal guy, and then the thunder cracks and then he turns towards you and it's like, the monster part. Where if the line wasn't as clean, then you wouldn't quite be able to do those shots.
Right. Yeah, and you've got in this episode in the second half, which I didn't notice. I had watched this episode kind of recently, but then I watched it again right before we did this, and I don't think I noticed this the first time. They do a lot of really interesting visual stuff at the end when they're in his lair, where they have the light side and the dark side of the room split.
Yeah.
Where that whole last sequence, all of his movements are straddling that line. Mm-hmm. And, when the guys jump on top of him, Batman comes to help him from the light side. And then later on, he goes to pick up a Tommy gun, which is laying on the dark side. So they do a pretty good visual thing regarding, where his mental state is and stuff.
So, so that gets me onto some of my notes. I call that symbolic storytelling. Yeah. Even if you don't notice specifically that that's happening, I think that viewers often just feel it. And there are some other things, too. So when Harvey realizes that he's deformed, he's like, give me your mirror or whatever. And you see him knock a vase of flowers out of the way to grab the mirror. Mm-hmm. And then the next shot, you see his fiance walking up with flowers. So you get like that. He didn't have to swat the flowers away. He could have just had her walk in while he's holding the mirror, and he still could have rejected her, basically. Right. But the idea of, like, poetically, you can see, like, oh, I'm getting rid of the flowers. I don't want the flowers. Get out of the way, flowers. Hey, who's bringing you flowers? Your fiance. Hint, hint, you're going to get rid of your fiance. That kind of thing. Yeah. There's also a great bit when he's talking to his therapist and the lightning strikes just as he becomes Big Bad Harv. And you have, like, one section of film that showed him with a crazy scary Harvey face. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Just like as a lightning flash, you get like one frame of it, and it's quick enough. Like if you're not, it's like the penis shot from Fight Club or whatever. Yeah. But with less penis.
Just slightly though.
Yeah. Well, you can't say that about every Batman comic now.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah, that stuff, I think that's one of the things that makes this show great is these guys were really putting in the work in ways that I don't think like He-Man was. Although having just watched that documentary about He-Man, I did learn a lot of interesting stuff, and it was pretty cool what they were doing. But they were not putting in the work quite to the level that they were here.
No. Yeah, even the animation. So with a lot of cartoons now, because you have it done with Flash, or, they rather take a character and tween it or to shift it. But most characters walk into the frame, they talk, they walk out of the frame.
Yeah.
There's the scene where Big Bad Harvey shows up and he attacks his therapist, and like she is like trying to comfort him after, like she's leaning on him, she turns away, she turns back. Like there's a lot of acting going on in the animation, and it's just something that you tend to do if you're animating by hand, because that's how animators used to be trained. I suppose they still are, but just with the normal budget of normal cartoons, you usually don't get that kind of character acting with body language like you do here. I mean, there's probably cartoons I'm not aware of that they still do it, but that's one thing that struck out at me. It struck that seemed obvious to me was how much thought they put into it. I mean, they must have filmed actors interacting to sort of figure out what a human would do if your therapist just attacked you and then you were calming down. Like, how do you get where would she step? How would she move? How would she sit? Mm-hmm. Things like that. And you turn on like the new Teen Titans cartoon, it's just characters walking in and out of camera, and that's it.
Right. That that reminds me of something that happens later in the episode that I think falls under the symbolic storytelling banner, but also what you're talking about here is there's a point where I think it's his fiance grabs him by the shoulders, and the easy way to do that would be like a profile shot or something where it's just like a very easy two-dimensional grab or whatever, but they do it at a kind of a 3/4 angle so you can see both sides of Harvey's face, and he does this movement that it seemed so specific, where he has his hands together and he puts them up between her arms and then opens them, splits them open to take her hands off of his shoulders. Right. So he's literally bringing up both sides of his face and then splitting it in half like that. It was really, really good.
You're right. That's amazing. I didn't catch it, but that's exactly what symbolic storytelling is. That's a whole other layer. I mean, to do this well, you don't only need a good script, you need good animation, and once you have that stuff, it's like, well, what can we do to put in like secret signals to the viewer that the viewer might not even see? It's like, who takes time to do that stuff anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, some people do. Like in Road to Perdition, one of my favorite movies, they had a theme with water. Anytime there was water in there, it was death. So it was a beach, or it was like a funeral with ice on the body and rain. So anytime you saw water, someone was going to die. Right. And what was the movie?
Godfather. They do something similar with oranges. Like every time oranges somebody gets shot or killed or whatever.
Yeah, that's always amazed me, because like you're doing something that most people aren't even going to notice. That takes a lot of extra time and thought to do correctly. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a lost art,
I mean, Sixth Sense was anytime there was red on the screen, I think, was when the ghosts were showing up or something.
Yeah, I think red was used a lot in American Beauty as well.
Yep.
I know when I did Punk Rock Jesus, I had the bad guy, whenever he was in political mode, he would be wearing his top coat over his suit.
Oh, yeah.
So, and when he really became who he was and became evil, he would always take the coat off, like his performance was over and he was about to be who he was.
Right.
It's a subtle thing, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Circling back a little bit to his Two-Face's origin, he's always traditionally been... The psychological part has always been part of his origin. Bob Kane claims to have been inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is fairly obvious. But since then, it's been expanded into people get a lot more into the bipolar issues, or the OCD of the coin thing. And I think one of the things that I always found interesting about him is that the coin gives him a certain amount of empathy, but it's not real empathy. It's only there because he's following the rules of the coin.
Yeah.
And I just imagine, like, if he were a real person with this problem, right?
Right.
Down the line, it would eventually, you'd end up with Harvey Dent lying in bed flipping a coin, whether to see whether or not he even gets up that day. It would just it would get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it would get down to I need to flip a coin for any little bit of minutia, any decision I have to make, which is really interesting as far as a villain goes in a popular entertainment piece.
Right. Like how OCD is he? Like, does he flip the coin, decide do I wipe my ass or don't I? Or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if I would assume in real life it would get to that point. Yeah. And kind of to circle back to the politics thing, I was thinking, in this episode, the coin thing I feel isn't totally motivated.
I don't know where the coin ever came from. Yeah. It's cool, but I'd love more of a backstory to it.
Right. It's just sort of there. And I was thinking, man, it would be, I would love to see a version of Two-Face where he's not so much bipolar and not so much OCD, but being a district attorney working in the justice system, he's just driven so crazy by the quote unquote coin flip nature of how these court cases shake out, and especially in a place like Gotham where it's very corrupt and all that kind of stuff. Because he gets to a point where he snaps and he's like, "What does it fucking matter? I should just flip a coin and see." So he ends up going the vigilante route to an extent, just flipping and having just the coin make the decisions because nothing matters because the system that he put all of his faith in is clearly broken, and so that the explosion or whatever that damages him just makes him snap. I thought that would be kind of an interesting way to kind of tweak him or maybe update him a little bit.
Yeah. I think the coin thing started. I mean, I'm sure he was designed, and comics were much simpler. And a gangster flipping a coin was always kind of a menacing thing, and he's obviously like a Dick Tracy gangster in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, there's a lot of potential to explore, like where that coin came from. Is it his father's or his mother's? Did they have some kind of mental disorder as well?
Well, he also has traditionally an abusive father element that plays into it.
Right. Huh.
And I think there might be something where the coin is involved with his father's punishment. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah. Hey, what do you when I first watched this as a kid, I thought Harvey Dent was black. I actually thought he was slightly darker skinned in the way they animated him.
Yeah.
Maybe I was thinking about Billy Dee Williams because but I thought, why I love this act. The actor that does his voice is great, obviously. But I was curious, like, what would you think if Billy Dee Williams had done this voice forever? Like, do you think it would have been better?
Oh, I think it would have been great. I mean, I like Billy. Okay. So I like Billy Dee Williams. I really wish that we could have seen Billy Dee Williams as Two-Face.
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to say I don't know if he could do it, but I love the two-sided performance that this guy gives. And what's his name? It's the guy from Night Court, right?
Yeah, his evil voice is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Billy Dee Williams has a good evil voice.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, he's traditionally smooth motherfucker,
Yeah, and this act, when Harvey, before he turns into Big Bad Harvey, he's a nervous. I mean, he's good in front of the cameras, but behind the cameras, he's sort of a nervous wreck, insecure, not very unsure about himself. And Billy Dee Williams is very secure about himself.
Right, yeah. And I don't want to assume. Yeah, like I don't want to assume that he couldn't do it, but it doesn't feel like a natural fit as much as this voice acting does.
Right. You're right.
But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I don't think I ever really viewed him as being explicitly white because he does kind of have more of a, for lack of a more sensitive or way to put it, he does have kind of a more ethnic look to him.
Yeah, he looks Latin, or I would believe him to be
like Sicilian or something.
Sicilian, yeah, maybe like Latino or Italian or something, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have probably gone a little darker with him because when he's next to another white character, he's not that much darker.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of too bad that they didn't, because there's really really not very many prominent characters of color in the show.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, well, Montoya's there, but there's the only black people I can think of are Lucius Fox, and that might be it.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is
You know, it's funny. If I had seen this series now, I would have. That's something that's definitely on my radar more, as it is with all of us. Yeah. Like you the I'm like, okay, what are the optics on this? Do we have a character? This? Do we have that? Yeah. Do we have all the colors of the rainbow in some way? Okay, good. And because I've been seeing this since I was a kid, I just haven't thought about it at all.
Right.
Maybe if I was a black kid, I would have noticed. Probably I would have noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. There's not enough black characters in this, or characters of diversity.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah.
So getting into the episode, like the structure and stuff, we recently did, as I said at the beginning, this is the first real origin we've seen. It's we've seen Poison Ivy, which we both really liked. We thought was a good introduction to her, but even that one she's kind of fully formed, and we just get like a little bit of a speech or a flashback. I can't remember exactly what it is. And Scarecrow also has like a really shitty flashback.
Yeah.
But this is the
best one so far.
Yeah, this is the first time that we've seen a normal to supervillain, story. Right. And it is the first two-parter, which it feels like it needs to be for a character like this.
Yeah.
But do you feel like it's stretched a little too thin?
You could have cut it a bit more. I remember feeling like Batman should have cracked the case a lot faster than he did.
It's a very Batman light episode.
Yeah.
They do. I think the Batman presence in the first half is really only that first scene where he's just sort of in the background, and then the last scene where he gets where Dent gets blown up.
Right.
And then the second one, you have that great dream where he
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, it's
why didn't you save us, Bruce?
Yeah,
okay, we get it.
It's very heavy-handed, but part of me kind of likes that a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because it's a more interesting way to do that than just having him verbalize it. Right. But my least favorite Batman in this show is Batman where he gets really sappy. The perfect example in this episode is, where he's like, Harvey, no. Right. Like and then in the second half, after he wakes up from that dream, he gives that really weird monologue where he's just like, I will find out why this happened to you, my friend, and I will avenge. It's really strange.
Yeah, that's when it turns into a kid's show.
Yes.
Because normally it's sort of written for adults, but then they're like, well, we have children who might not get it, so let's make sure it's obvious why Bruce is really upset and feels responsible or whatever.
And, I think the first, I don't know about you, but I think the first half is a lot stronger than the second half. The second half is pretty thin on story. How do you feel?
Yeah, for me, it all kind of blends into one story. I'm the same way. People ask me about Kill Bill 1 versus Volume 2, and I'm like, dude, it's one movie for me. Don't make me choose between halves.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you, though.
Yeah. The thing I do find funny is that they do have between episodes, they do have a pretty clear, they get across a pretty clear feeling that some time has passed.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, he's had time to get a gang. He's got two criminals to work with him who are twins.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting, is you've got a guy that is divided, literally, between Two-Face and Harvey Dent, and then you have his two gangster friends that are identical twins. I'm curious what the decision-making was.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't think about it that way. I mean, and they're not even...
Why do they have to be twins?
They're not even dressed... If they were twins and one of them was dressed differently...
Right.
That might, if they were like one had a white suit and one had a black suit, that might feel a little bit more natural. But I think his thing very quickly becomes he really likes the number 2.
Right.
And so I guess that's that's the first thing you'd think of is like, well, if we had 2 henchmen? Oh, they should be twins. That kind of thing.
Right.
But when I was watching it this time, before they really kind of get into the details that tell you some time has passed, it just starts up with him doing his Two-Face thing with the suit and the twins and attacking the Second National Bank or whatever. And I was thinking, like, man, was Big Bad Harv just sitting in there working on branding the whole time so he knew exactly what he wanted to do when he got out?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I also like to know why the twins they both look like Howdy Doody.
Yeah,
they're trying to add some levity to it, or...
Yeah, they make a very interesting comeback if you watch the Batman and Harley movie, which is I don't recommend.
Oh God.
There's a scene where they sing a song, and it's very
Jesus.
oddly.
We're gonna have to.
It's very oddly homoerotic.
Stick with this
it's
podcast.
very strange.
That means at one point we're gonna have to review that atrocity of a cartoon.
I would like to say no.
Yeah, I mean, if it's in the lexicon, I mean, if we're committed to doing all the TAS stuff.
Yeah.
Once we finish the few movies, I mean. Yeah.
If we have a Patreon for this, we'll put that as a goal.
Yeah. Because I work for DC, so I don't want to shit on it too much. But
I can say whatever I want.
Yeah, I'll give you notes, and you say what I would normally say.
Future be damned. No. As an origin, I think it's a great origin. I think it works. If you're watching it as one solid piece, I think it works pretty great.
Yeah. Well, they set him up, Harvey, as a good guy in other episodes. So they really went out of their way to make sure you got a chance to know who this character was a little bit.
Yeah.
Before you got to this episode. And they quite deliberately said, okay, we're going to do a two-parter. Two-parter, Two-Face. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes, yeah.
And they do get a lot of props, I think, for trying it. So I think they succeed more than they fail. There's a few things I would do to tweak it. Like you said, the second half drags on a little bit more than the first half. But really, I mean, overall, I'd call it a home run.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's the first appearance of the Bat Cycle, which is fun.
Yes, I know. I didn't notice that until I looked it up the other day. I also noticed that the weather in Gotham is raining throughout both episodes.
Yes.
So, good time to show Batman taking a motorcycle out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's an odd choice.
And what always bugged me is his fucking helmet. It looks like a Lego helmet. It doesn't look like it's thought out at all. It bothers me as a kid. It bothers me now.
Yeah, it is. It looks just like the Lego Batman head.
It does. It's got like a bar. I mean, just gotta look at it. You'll know what we're talking about.
My favorite shot in the episode is towards the beginning at the campaign event where he's announcing, or where he's going to announce that he's winning or whatever. He's talking backstage to Bruce, and Bruce is just hanging out drinking a cup of coffee. Oh,
well, there was another shot where Bruce was flirting with this girl.
Yeah. There's good Bruce Wayne work. I feel like we've talked about this, and we'll talk about it again. That one of the hallmarks of the show is that they really do well in making Batman and Bruce Wayne very different personalities.
Have a character, maybe Harley, because she's a psychologist, point out, like, hey, Batman, what's your favorite music? What's your favorite song? What do you do on a day off? Do you enjoy walks through the woods? Like, ask him very simple human questions that he would not be able to answer.
Right.
Like, I don't think Batman listens to music. I think if he's walking through the woods, he's wishing that he was at home researching something for his next crime bust. Like, I think you could very easily show, like, it's not normal not to have a favorite song. I mean, Jesus.
I really like the theme from Dragnet. Yeah.
And I think about, in this episode, he's sort of flirting with the girl on the side, playing up the millionaire playboy thing. But it's like, why? Why does he need to really be Bruce Wayne at all? Why can't he just be Batman 100% of the time? And Bruce Wayne is a guy who never leaves his house, basically, Right.
Well, in the '89 Batman, he's sort of more like that, I think, because he's not really that much of a out there in the paparazzi kind of thing. He's more of a Howard Hughes type. I mean, to the point where Vicky Vale goes to the mansion and she doesn't even know who he is.
Yeah,
but she is new in town. Maybe you can cut her some slack. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I mean, the things that I think about Batman that I don't think most writers agree with him are, I don't think he needs to be Bruce Wayne, period.
Yeah.
I don't think Batman needs to be considered a good guy. I think he could be a villain of Gotham who goes after other villains, who thinks he's a good guy. Mm-hmm. I think readers would generally be fine with that. I don't think it matters that much if everyone knows that he's Bruce Wayne. But he's still so wealthy and off the grid that no one can find him. I don't think it affects how we see Batman really that much at all. These things that we really clutch oh, you can't tell Gotham who Batman is. Oh, you need to have Goofy Bruce to balance, Batman Bruce. I don't think that's true. I think there's a version of Batman that's just Batman, and that's it.
Well, do you think that the split of the characters though creates some more kind of fun?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
Because what you're talking about, while cool, sounds very serious.
It's there's less variety when you do it that way. You're right. Yeah. And there's always like are they going to find out who he is? And then you wouldn't have these great lines like in Dark Knight where Morgan Freeman's like, let me get this straight. You think that Bruce Wayne is this guy that goes out and kicks a whole bunch of ass every night, and your plan is to blackmail this person?
Right.
That is a great line, and if you did it my way, you wouldn't have that line. I get it.
my way, the way that I will refute or counter what you're saying is by using those movies as an example, because if there's no Bruce Wayne, then there's only Batman, right? So that means you only have Batman voice. So if you look at the Nolan movies, he used that Batman voice in all 3 movies, but the only one that he gets shit for are the second 2, where there's not really any Bruce Wayne in them. There's Bruce Wayne, but there's not as much Bruce Wayne as there is in the first one. In the first one, you get a lot of the, where he, what's his name? I forget who it is. Rutger Hauer comes out and he's teaching his secretary how to putt and flirt with her. And then he does the thing where they go to dinner and he bought the hotel and he's pretending to be drunk, and you get a really good sense of the fun Bruce Wayne side. So when he does the Batman thing and he goes into the growly Batman voice, it feels like it stands out. But when you get to the second movies where he's doing all of his lines in that voice, it sounds ridiculous. So
you're right. I mean, if he's doing more elaborate lines using that creepy voice box, then that's when I think it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
But my question is, was it the same Batman voice in the first and second movie? Do we know for sure? If you did they turn it up at all for the second one? Because it felt like they did.
So the difference is, and I did go back and watch this at some point to figure this out because I was curious.
Of course he did.
He speaks in much more of a whisper most of the time.
Right.
But he does use the growly Batman voice when he's doing more intense stuff. Like that scene where he picks the guy up upside down and he's asking him where. That's when he uses the Batman voice, and it's great.
That's fine. Yeah.
But for some reason, in the next movies, he delivers all of his lines through that, like, partially.
How are you doing today?
Partially, like, he's got kind of like a stuffed nose, but he's also growly, and it sounds like he needs a mint.
That's why I think people have a problem with it. I just don't think it was executed the same way.
Yeah.
You can't just, play your ace, play your wild card every single hand. You have to save it for special occasions. You can't just have Batman growling at the top of his lungs all the time.
Yeah, and I love the way that they handled it in the first one, where he just kind of talked in a whisper a lot. I thought that was great. Because, Batman's not going to be talking loud enough for multiple people to hear what he's saying, you'd think.
Right. Yeah. No, I think Michael Keaton did it the best still. I think that, I don't know if there was much of a difference other than him whispering a bit more and acting a bit more gravelly. But they certainly didn't use a voice changing mechanism or whatever.
No, that scene where he's explaining the Joker's plan to Vicky Vale in the Batcave, and like the only light is hitting just his eyes, and he's talking very quietly and explaining it's not two chemicals, it's any that kind of thing. That stuff is great. I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And
good job. That's
that'll lead me into the next part of this, which is talking about the things that we'd like to draw or change in this episode. Because mine, I have 2. It's kind of a tie.
Go ahead.
It's the first one is I would love to do the scene in the hospital after the explosion where he's revealing his face, which is a direct lift from Batman 89, even to the point where he's asking for a mirror and then he freaks out and all that kind of stuff.
Mirror!
Yeah. But I really like the idea of playing with the reveal of the face. I think you could do some really kind of fun stuff with that. And the other one tied for me is the Bat Cycle in the Rain sequence, because there's... it's pouring.
You hated drawing motorcycles.
I like drawing rain though, so it evens out.
Okay.
And the more rain there is, the more gestural.
The less motorcycle there is.
The more gestural I can get with it. But the cool thing in that scene is every time lightning strikes, the whole thing goes black and white, and that would be. It would be kind of hard to do in a comic because the movement of time is difficult. But it would be. I would love to see a whole episode done like that. That would be very cool. But yeah, I love that effect. The rain on the helmet and splashing off the cycle, and is really cool, and
Right.
that would be fun.
Yeah. Nice, man. Those are good answers. I think if I had to draw something in this, I would do a motorcycle scene, but I would do it because I want to tweak that design.
Yeah.
I like what they were going for. I think a deco motorcycle was a cool idea. There are elements I'd keep, but overall, I don't think it looks great. And it's one of those things where even the Batman animated series Batmobile, it looks good from certain angles, but it looks really bad from, like, for example, the ears on the Batmobile just go straight back.
Right.
So if you're staring at the car, there's a straight on shot. There's nothing Batmobile about it at all. The ears don't go up at all. Whereas the Burton Batmobile, the ears are up, sort of flared at an angle, so it reads as Batmobile, as silhouette, from most points of view. I like the TAS Batmobile, but you do need to shoot it from certain angles for it to really work, I think. And I think the same thing goes for the motorcycle. I think the idea of having this like flared, these wings that kind of come up the back, towards the bottom, I don't know. And also, like, motorcycles lean. Batman seems to be up on the rear wheel a lot, so it doesn't make sense that there would be like flared bat wings close to the ground. Stuff like that bothers me.
I just saw that those great animated series toys that they have out now. They're making toys out of everything, which is fantastic. I just saw that the Gray Ghost is coming out.
There's finally a Gray Ghost.
I know.
Finally, fucking Rosie the Rocket. They did her and her fucking rocket, but not the Gray Ghost.
And they're also coming out with the original version of Two-Face, which I like. It's funny. I think it goes to show how good of a design he is, in that when they did their redesigns, they didn't change him. They just kind of streamlined him a little bit, but they kept the same face, the same suit, and everything. But I always liked the original one, the one that was a little bit like, gnarlier, a little bit better. But they are coming out with the Batcycle. And I didn't even notice that it has those wings at the bottom, which seems super impractical for a motorcycle. Yeah. Because that's how you turn, right? It's just by kind of tipping back and forth.
Yeah. Whoever designed them has obviously not been on a motorcycle. So I have the original toy still in the original packaging of Batman on the Batcycle from this cartoon. And he's attached to it permanently, and you roll it back and it goes forward on its own, like one of those things. Mm-hmm. So I've had time to like study this thing since and even as a kid, I'm like, this just does not make sense.
Back when you weren't getting invited to parties in high school.
Yeah. I know. But I mean, the front of it has these 3 lines on it, which I think are good.
Yep.
I get they're going for a Indian motorcycle type of vibe, which had these like spade shaped fenders covering most of the wheels.
Yeah.
So I get what they were thinking, but the person that designed it did not obviously ride motorcycles, and it does bug me.
Well, next week we'll have on the person who designed that to make Sean feel like an asshole. Speaking of the Batmobile, there is a shot in this episode where I think Batman pulls in the Batmobile next to Harvey Dent's car at the end, like when he's going after Harvey Dent before he gets blown up. It made me think about how actually like totally impractical the Batmobile is. Mm-hmm. Because why would Batman who's all about deception and ninja and quiet and shadows, be riding around town in the loudest, biggest car he could possibly find?
Totally. Yeah, honestly, I think it's because he's a gearhead and he enjoys it. I mean, he's going to be out there. He might as well have fun.
Like, honestly, if it wanted to be more appropriate to the character, the Batmobile would be like an old Ford Taurus. Yeah.
Oh, God. Don't start talking about RoboCop, please.
Hey, I'm just saying. It was good enough for RoboCop. It's good enough for Batman, okay?
It's funny. I was driving down 95 the other day in my Mazda 3 gray, so it doesn't stand out at all. And I'm doing 85. I'm going way too fast. And there's an SRT Dodge behind me, which is, I don't know, 500 horsepower or whatever, white with like black racing stripes. And the guy he wants to go faster than me, but he doesn't want to be in the fast lane by himself because he's obvious cop bait. You know?
Right.
And I remember thinking, you know what? You get a car like that, you think, I'm going to cruise down to Boston and get there as fast as I can. But I think me and my nondescript Mazda, or like you and your imaginary Ford Taurus, have a much better chance of getting around inconspicuously and going just as fast as you want than an SRT, honestly,
Probably. And what was your license plate, just in case there's any state troopers listening?
Yeah, in case there are any snipers on 95 who are looking for me.
What would you rate this?
I go 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't know what it's missing, but it's great. But it's just not one of my go-tos usually.
Yeah, I think the first half is almost as good as any of the other like big villain episodes. Like Heart of Ice is obviously in its own thing, and that's another one too. Well, I guess I was gonna say like they do so much in Heart of Ice in just one episode, but you're not getting like the origin of Mr. Freeze, so maybe it's unfair to compare them.
Well, I mean, my 5-star episodes usually have everything is so tight and perfectly organized that you really can't change anything.
Right.
And in this one, I think there's a lot of there's other ways I might have done this. There's other ways I might have plotted it. Like Batman, towards the end of the second episode, he's like, "Whoa." He's telling Alfred, I think, about like, all these businesses start with the number 2, and Alfred's like, "Oh, well, what else? What other banks are there that have a 2 in it?" And Batman's like, "Well, that was the last one." So actually, I just figured out that he's going after Rupert Thorne. Like,
right?
Okay. Why did you go on about the fucking 2 nonsense?
Yeah, and the way like his actual plan on how to get Thorne is really kind of like meh. Yeah. Like he gets those files, and he's like, "If I had these files years ago, I could have convicted him." It's like, all right, so are you gonna blackmail him now?
Yeah.
Like, there's no
2
based way to blackmail somebody, is there?
Yeah, it's good episode. It's not clean and tight like Heart of Ice is, or for me POV.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Did this Two-Face isn't really in White Knight, but was he in your mind at all?
He was actually. So 2 things. One, when I was redesigning all the characters, I really tried to stay with the TAS vibe. And when I redid Two-Face, I started with the half black suit, half white suit face. Rather than blue, I went with red just to make him more devilish or whatever. Yep. Just to switch it up. And then I think his gangster side is pinstriped and his good guy side is black or white. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. I have him in a few shots. Holding a Tommy gun, shooting. I mean, all the villains are pretty handicapped in White Knight because they're all basically zombies. So I didn't have to write any dialogue or really explore them. They're just kind of there. But I will say that I think more than I realized, the Harvey having a split personality and the Jekyll Hyde definitely influenced my Joker. In fact, if I had gone more into Two-Face, and an earlier version of White Knight actually had Two-Face as more active before he got zombified by Joker. But that would have been distracting because you have the Jekyll Hyde thing going on with Jack Napier and Joker. You don't need it in Two-Face as well, unless you're trying to make a different kind of comment about that, whatever that might be.
Right.
So, yeah, the idea of like Jack Napier is totally different than Joker. The 2 sides don't talk to each other. One can surface at any moment. It's totally lifted from Two-Face, more than I realized. As I was watching this, I was like, oh man, this cartoon influenced me like way more than I realized.
Right. Well, that's
really
cool.
There's even a point where Harvey's like, oh yeah, that's fine. There's just one problem. You're not talking to Harv, or something like that. And I had a similar line where, Jack Napier's in the Batmobile and Batman's like, all right, you got to do this, and that, and that's how we're going to win. And Napier's like, okay, great. There's only one problem. I'm not Jack.
Right.
Same line, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So it is what it is.
It's such a good. I mean, it's hard to do a split personality thing and not do that though, because that's such a slam dunk.
Yeah, totally. It's what the crowd wants too. I think that it's not.
It's the Hulk thing, right? It's the "you wouldn't like me when I'm angry" beat.
Yeah. I think it's like reading a comic or going to a movie with this stuff is sort of like going to a concert where you want to hear the hits. So you kind of want the shot of Batman on a gargoyle as much as we goddamn see that. You do want to do the hits. You want to have, if you're going to do a Two-Face story, you got to have someone talking to Two-Face, but actually it's Harvey or whatever. You kind of want to give the crowd what they're expecting. It's not derivative. I think it's important just to remind them that they're getting their money's worth because this is why you bought the comic. You wanted to see a couple of Two-Face jokes. Haha, well, here you go, kids. But you also want to go out of your way to try to do original stuff and, play with it in ways that other writers haven't, of course,
Right.
But I don't mind, like, playing the hits, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I mean, that stuff is it's like you said, it's why people like the characters and not to say that you need to only play the hits, but
right, yeah,
little bits of that stuff always makes it that much stronger, I think.
Yeah, and you need to remind people like this is, so when I started White Knight, they start out with the hits, Joker and Batman. Joker's like, all right, let's go through the routine.
Yeah, that's literally a line of dialogue in the
going
book.
through the hits. Yeah. And it's just to like set the reader in mind, okay, this Gotham is the average Gotham. Batman and Joker have been going at it for years, and the relationship is as I thought. Okay, now time to throw a wrench in everything.
Right.
But I think it's important to play the hits from time to time.
Yeah, so I would give it I think I would give
Did we never get your rating? I'm sorry.
I don't think so. No, it's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would probably end up 4. I think the first half is super strong. Second half is a little bit weak. Overall, I'd give it a 4. I'd say I'd give the first half a 3, and the second half like a maybe a 2, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. Like I said, I like the second half more this time than I have in the past. So but yeah,
great,
I think that's gonna do it for Two-Face. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at BATTASS Podcast. And if you want to send us an email, you can do that also at BATTASspodcast@gmail.com. If you want to give us a rate or a review, that would be awesome. On iTunes, you can do it through your phone. It's super easy. If you have the iTunes app, podcast app, you can do it right on your phone. It's simple. But yeah, thank you, Sean.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Let the good times roll.